Daniel's ship had fallen from the stars like a broken flame. Metal screamed against the alien ground, and smoke rose high into the purple sky. For hours, Daniel fought the pain in his body, crawling away from the wreck, searching for safety. His oxygen tank was half broken, his comms silent, and the strange air of this planet made his lungs burn. He thought he was alone, lost and forgotten. But then, in the stillness of the alien forest, he heard a sound. Not the wind, not the crack of burning metal, but a small voice, trembling and soft. "Help! Hero, please," it whispered. Daniel froze. He looked around, his eyes searching the trees, tall and glowing with strange blue veins. There, half hidden among the roots, was a child. Her skin shimmered with faint silver light, her eyes wide and unblinking. She was not human, not even close, but her fear was something Daniel understood well. The child looked at him as if she had always known his face. "You came," she whispered again. "You are the hero." Daniel's heart pounded. He had no idea what she meant. He had crashed here by mistake. He was no hero, only a broken pilot. Yet the way she looked at him, like he was the answer to her prayers, made him step closer. Suddenly, a loud hiss echoed from the forest. The trees shook, and shadows moved fast between the glowing leaves. The child gasped and clutched at Daniel's arm. "They are coming," she cried, her voice shaking. "The hunters, they want me." Daniel's instincts screamed at him to run, to hide. But the little alien's hand was small and trembling in his. She believed in him, without question, without fear. He had been a soldier once, long ago, before this mission, before he was lost in space. And in that moment, that soldier inside him woke again. "Stay behind me," Daniel said, his voice low. The hunters stepped out from the shadows, tall creatures with jagged armor and burning red eyes. Their weapons glowed with sharp energy, humming in the silence of the night. They looked at the child with hunger and at Daniel with rage. One of them hissed, "The human should not be here." Daniel tightened his grip on a metal shard he had taken from the wreck. It was no real weapon, but it was sharp enough. The child pressed against his side, whispering, "Hero, please." The hunters circled, their laughter cruel. They thought this would be easy prey. Daniel's mind raced. He could not fight them head-on, but maybe he could outsmart them. He remembered the fires still burning at the crash site, the leaking fuel, the sparks. Slowly, step by step, he led the child backward, guiding her toward the wreck. The hunters followed, mocking, hissing, tightening their circle. When Daniel reached the edge of the wreck, he saw the ground soaked with fuel. One spark, he thought, one chance. He looked at the child, her eyes filled with tears. "Close your eyes," he whispered. The hunters lunged. Daniel struck his shard against the metal, creating a shower of sparks. The fire leapt into the fuel, and in an instant, an explosion roared through the night. Flames rose high, throwing the hunters back, their armor cracking under the blast. The child screamed, but Daniel held her tight, shielding her with his body. When the fire settled, the hunters lay scattered, wounded and snarling. They crawled back into the shadows, their red eyes fading into the trees. Daniel stood, his chest heaving, his skin burned, his body trembling. But the child looked up at him with shining eyes. "You are my hero," she said, her voice soft but sure. Daniel wanted to tell her she was wrong, that he was just a broken man who had fallen from the sky. But her words filled the empty space inside him with something new, something alive. He realized he had saved her not because of prophecy, not because of destiny, but because it was the right thing to do. The child took his hand again, holding it tightly. "My name is Lyra," she said, "and I will take you to my mother. She will see you. She will know." Daniel felt a chill. He had no idea who her mother was or what kind of people she belonged to, but he knew one thing. The moment he saved this child, his life had changed forever. Together, they stepped into the glowing forest, the flames of the wreck burning behind them. Lyra walked with trust, her hand never letting go of his. And Daniel, though broken and lost, carried the weight of a new name. a name given to him by a child who saw him not as a stranger, not as an enemy, but as her hero. The alien forest stretched endlessly before them, glowing trees whispering with a strange hum that made Daniel's ears ring. Every step felt like he was walking deeper into a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. Lyra walked beside him, her small hand never letting go of his, her silver skin glowing faintly under the strange moons above. She looked calm in her belief, but Daniel could feel the weight of danger all around them. The hunters were gone, but he knew they would return, stronger, angrier, hungrier. Daniel's body ached, each breath heavy with smoke still lingering in his lungs. Yet every time he thought about resting, Lyra would glance up at him with her wide, glowing eyes. "Hero, we cannot stop here," she whispered, her voice soft but certain. "My people watch the skies. They fear humans, but I know you are the one." Daniel frowned, his boots crunching against alien roots that pulsed like veins. He was no hero. He was just a man who survived by luck and instinct. But Lyra believed so strongly, her trust wrapping around him tighter than chains. He could not break it. He could not tell her she was wrong. And a quiet part of him wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was right. As they moved deeper, the forest revealed its beauty and its danger. Vines glowed with liquid light. Flowers opened with whispers, releasing mist that shimmered in the air. Daniel touched one by mistake, and the petals snapped shut like jaws, sharp enough to cut his glove. Lyra pulled him back quickly, her small voice serious. "The forest tests strangers. It wants to know if you are worthy." Daniel shook his head, muttering to himself, "Yeah, figures, even the plants want me dead." Hours passed in silence, broken only by the strange hum of the forest and Lyra's occasional whisper. She told him stories of her people, of how they once walked among humans in ancient times. But war and betrayal had broken the bond, and now humans were feared as destroyers. Daniel listened quietly, his heart heavy with the thought that if her people saw him, they would likely kill him before hearing his name. Still, Lyra's trust never faltered, and that trust kept him walking forward. At one point, they reached a river glowing with blue fire, flowing like liquid stars. Daniel crouched down, watching the way it hissed and steamed against the rocks. "Is it safe?" he asked. Lyra nodded and dipped her hand inside, the glow wrapping around her like threads of light. She offered it to him. "Drink, it heals." Daniel hesitated, then tasted the strange water, cold as ice yet burning with energy. For the first time since the crash, his body felt lighter, stronger, his pain fading. They crossed the river on stepping stones that rose from the water, as if answering Lyra's call. Daniel stumbled once, nearly falling, but Lyra caught his arm, laughing softly. "You are a strong hero, but clumsy," she teased. Daniel let out a breath that almost became a laugh, something he had not done in months. This child, this fragile being in a world of danger, somehow gave him a reason to smile again. But the peace did not last. The shadows of the hunters returned, faint red eyes watching them from across the river. Daniel tightened his grip on the shard of metal still strapped to his side. "We need to move faster," he said, pulling Lyra close. The hunters did not attack, not yet, but their presence was a warning. This was only the beginning. As night fell, the forest grew darker, the glow fading until only faint lines of light marked their path. Daniel and Lyra found shelter inside the hollow of a massive tree, its inside warm and pulsing like a living heart. Lyra curled beside him, her eyes slowly closing, her voice soft with trust. "You came for me, hero. You will not leave me." Daniel looked down at her, at the small alien child who believed in him more than he believed in himself. He whispered, almost to himself, "No, kid, I won't leave you." But sleep did not come for him. His mind was restless, filled with questions, filled with fear. Who were these hunters? Why did they want her, and why did she believe so deeply in him? The forest hummed like a song of secrets, and Daniel sat in the dark, guarding the child who had called him her hero. He did not know what waited ahead, but he knew one thing for certain. The bond between them was no accident, and it was growing stronger with every step they took together. When the first light of the twin suns rose, Daniel saw movement in the distance. Tall figures approaching, not hunters this time, but beings clad in silver armor that gleamed in the light. Lyra woke and gasped with joy. "My people, they are here." Daniel's heart sank. He knew what she could not. Her people would not see him as a hero. They would see him as a threat. And he wondered if saving her life had only brought him closer to his death. The silver-armored figures moved like shadows given form, tall and elegant, their steps silent on the glowing earth. Daniel's body tensed, every muscle ready for a fight, though he knew he stood no chance against them. Lyra, however, ran forward with excitement in her small frame, her voice bright. "Mother, mother, I found him." Her cry echoed through the forest, and one of the tall beings stepped forward, her presence commanding the air itself. She was taller than the rest, her silver skin shining with threads of violet, her eyes sharp like blades. The way the others moved aside told Daniel she was their leader, their queen, or perhaps something more. Lyra rushed into her arms, and the woman bent down, holding her child close, her expression soft only for a moment. Then her gaze lifted, and it fell on Daniel with cold fire. "You," she said, her voice echoing like thunder through the trees. "You dare touch my daughter, human." Daniel froze, his shard of metal clutched tight, but useless. He opened his mouth to speak, but the woman raised her hand, and in an instant the warriors around him drew their glowing spears. Daniel felt the heat of the weapons on his skin. One wrong move, and they would strike. Lyra broke free from her mother's embrace and ran to Daniel, standing in front of him, her arms spread wide. "No," she cried, her voice trembling but strong. "He is not the enemy. He saved me. He is the hero." Her mother's eyes flickered, but her voice remained sharp. "You do not understand, child. Humans are dangerous. They always bring destruction. He cannot be trusted." Daniel spoke then, his voice rough but steady. "I didn't come here by choice. My ship crashed. I was ready to die. But your hunters tried to take her. I couldn't let that happen." The queen, Serena, as Lyra had called her in whispers, narrowed her eyes. Her gaze pierced him as if reading his soul, as if searching for the lie. The warriors tightened their circle, their spears glowing brighter. Lyra grabbed Daniel's burned hand and held it up, showing her mother the scars. "He burned himself to save me. He fought the hunters with nothing but broken metal. He protected me." Her voice cracked with tears. "He is my hero, mother, the one I told you about." Silence spread, heavy and tense, only the hum of the forest filling the air. Serena's face softened for a breath, but it hardened again quickly. "A child's words cannot wash away the blood of history," she said coldly. "Humans once walked here, and we welcomed them, and they betrayed us. They left us with scars that never healed. I will not make the same mistake." Her hand lifted, and Daniel knew what was coming. Execution, swift and final. But Lyra screamed, her small body throwing itself against her mother's leg. "If you kill him, you kill my hero. You kill the prophecy," she shouted, her voice shaking the forest itself. The warriors hesitated, their eyes flickering between mother and child. The word prophecy carried weight. Even Daniel could feel it, like a hidden truth whispering beneath the surface. Serena froze, her lips parting in a sharp breath. "You dare speak of the prophecy, child?" she whispered, her tone trembling for the first time. Lyra nodded fiercely, tears shining in her eyes. "Yes, the old word said a human will come, not to harm, but to protect. I know it is him, I know." She pointed at Daniel with small, trembling fingers. "He is the one, mother." The queen's face was unreadable, torn between disbelief and fear. Finally, she lowered her hand, though the spears around Daniel still glowed. "If you are truly the one my daughter speaks of," Serena said slowly, Then you must prove it, for words are dust, and trust is earned with fire. Daniel's heart pounded, the weight of destiny falling heavy on his shoulders. Lyra clung to his arm, whispering, "Do not be afraid, hero. You will show her." But Daniel was afraid, terrified. He was no chosen one, no savior, just a man broken by war and space. Yet in the eyes of the child who would not let go of his hand, he saw belief so strong it could move mountains. And in that moment, Daniel swore to himself he would not fail her, no matter the trial ahead. The warriors stepped back, the circle breaking. Serenia turned and gestured toward the heart of the forest, where the trees glowed brighter, where power seemed to thrum like a heartbeat. "Follow me, human," she commanded, her voice heavy with challenge, "and let the forest decide if you are truly worthy of my daughter's faith." Daniel's legs felt heavy as stone, but he followed, Lyra at his side. Behind them, the forest closed, as if sealing the path of no return. The forest heart was unlike anything Daniel had ever seen. The trees grew taller here, their trunks so wide they looked like walls of a fortress, their leaves glowing with golden fire. Strange energy pulsed through the ground, humming like a living drum beneath his boots. The air shimmered, hot and heavy, as though the place itself was watching him. Serenia walked ahead with her warriors, every step graceful, her silver armor catching the light like a blade. Daniel followed, his chest tight, Lyra clinging to his side, her small hand steadying his shaking one. He wanted to ask what trial waited for him, but his throat was dry, his voice locked away. The silence of the warriors around him told him the answer would not bring comfort anyway. At last, they reached a clearing, a circle of stone carved long ago, covered in symbols that glowed faintly with blue fire. In the center stood a pillar of crystal, tall and sharp, humming with raw energy. Serenia turned, her eyes fixed on Daniel like a hawk's. "This is the stone of judgment," she said, her voice echoing through the clearing. "It sees truth, it sees strength, it sees fear. No warrior of my people may lead without facing it, and no outsider has ever survived it." Daniel's stomach sank, but he forced himself to stand taller. "What do I have to do?" he asked, his voice rough. Serenia pointed to the crystal, her tone sharp. "Enter its circle, and guide my people through the storm that comes. If you falter, we die. If you betray us, the stone will burn you to ash." The warriors murmured at her words, their eyes gleaming with anticipation. Lyra tugged at his arm, her voice soft but certain. "You can do this, hero. I know it." Daniel looked down at her, his heart aching. He wanted to say no. He wanted to tell her he was not what she believed, but he could not break the light in her eyes. He stepped forward, crossing into the stone circle, the air instantly heavy with fire. The crystal flared, light exploding from its core, spreading into the sky. A storm began to form above, clouds twisting into black spirals, thunder rolling with alien fury. Winds roared through the forest, trees bending, roots ripping from the ground. The warriors raised their shields, but Serenia stood tall, her eyes fixed on Daniel. Daniel felt the storm slam into him, heat and cold at once, a force trying to rip him apart. His broken ship's equipment weighed heavy on his back, salvaged pieces of tech strapped together with hope and desperation. He pulled out a cracked energy shield, the only thing that might hold back the storm. He set it into the ground, the shield glowing weakly, the storm pressing harder. Sweat poured down his face, his burned hands trembling as he adjusted the power. The storm pushed against him, tearing at his skin, whispering lies in his mind. "You are nothing," it hissed. "You will fail her. You will fail them. You are no hero." Daniel gritted his teeth, his voice breaking. Not this time. The shield flickered, energy draining fast, sparks flying. Lyra cried out, "Hold on, hero, please." Her voice cut through the storm, stronger than the thunder. Daniel forced his burned hands back onto the device, pain searing through his arms. He screamed, but he held, refusing to let go. The storm raged harder, lightning striking around him, the ground splitting. One of the warriors shouted, "He cannot hold. He will break." But Serenia said nothing. Her sharp eyes locked on Daniel, searching, waiting, and in that silence, Daniel found strength. He thought of his past, of battles he lost, of comrades he failed. He thought of being broken and forgotten, drifting in space with no purpose. But then he thought of Lyra, of the child who believed when no one else ever would. And he chose to believe too, if only for her. With a roar, Daniel forced the shield higher, redirecting the storm. The energy bent, swirling away from the circle, the lightning shattering harmlessly against the crystal. The storm screamed one last time, then broke apart, leaving the forest silent once more. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his body shaking, smoke rising from his burned gloves. The shield cracked and died, but the circle still stood, untouched. Lyra ran to him, tears of joy streaming down her face, hugging him tightly. "You did it, hero, you did it," she whispered. The warriors murmured in shock, their voices low, uncertain. Serenia stepped forward, her gaze heavy on Daniel. For the first time, her voice carried no anger, only measured respect. "You stood where even our strongest have fallen," she said slowly. "Perhaps you are more than I believed." But her eyes still held doubt, and her voice carried warning. One trial does not make a hero. Human, trust is not won in a single storm. Daniel forced himself to stand, his legs weak, but steady. "I didn't do it for you," he said, his voice low. "I did it for her." He glanced at Lyra, her small hands gripping his, her smile brighter than any storm. The queen's eyes narrowed, but something in her heart shifted, a crack in the wall of her hatred. She turned to her warriors, her tone sharp again. "The trial is past, but the path is not done. Watch him, test him. If he fails again, he will die." The warriors bowed, their faces unreadable. Daniel stood there, burned, broken but alive. The storm had not taken him. The stone had not judged him unworthy. And though Serenia did not yet believe, Lyra's faith had grown even stronger. In her eyes, he was already the hero of prophecy. And Daniel knew that whatever trial came next, he would face it, not for destiny, but for her. The storm had passed, but the air still smelled of fire and lightning. Daniel's body ached with every breath, his hands burned and raw, yet he stood tall for Lyra. She never let go of his arm, her silver eyes glowing with pride, whispering again and again, "You are my hero." But the circle of warriors did not share her joy, their faces hard, their eyes sharp. To them, Daniel was still human, still dangerous, still an outsider. Serenia watched him in silence, her expression unreadable, her silver skin reflecting the fading stormlight. Daniel could feel her doubt pressing against him like a blade at his throat. She had seen his strength. She could not deny it, but she was not ready to trust. And in that silence, another voice rose, sharp and angry. It was a warrior, tall and scarred, his armor darker than the rest, his eyes burning with hatred. He stepped forward, pointing his spear at Daniel. "This proves nothing," he spat, his voice like gravel. "The human cheated. He used tricks of broken machines, not true strength." The others shifted uneasily, their loyalty torn between queen and comrade. Serenia narrowed her eyes, but did not silence him. The warrior sneered, circling Daniel, his voice loud. "Do you not see, my queen? He is a danger. He is a lie. And the storm should have burned him to ash. Yet it spared him. Why?" His eyes turned on Daniel, sharp as daggers. "Because he is a deceiver. Because humans always deceive." Daniel clenched his fists, his anger rising. "I didn't cheat," he growled, his voice low but steady. "I fought with everything I had. I bled for her. I burned for her." Lyra stepped forward, her small voice fierce. "He saved me. He saved all of us. He is the hero." But the warrior laughed, cruel and mocking. "A child's words, nothing more. And when he fails you, you will all see the truth." Before anyone could stop him, The warrior moved, fast as a shadow. His hand brushed against Daniel's broken device, the shield core still sparking faintly. He pressed something deep inside, his fingers twisting with intent. Daniel grabbed his wrist. Too late, sparks erupted, and the device cracked open, leaking unstable energy. The ground trembled. The crystal pillar hummed in warning. Daniel's heart stopped. He knew what the warrior had done. The shield had been sabotaged. Its energy turned wild, unstable, ready to explode. And Lyra stood too close, her small form bathed in the glow of danger. "No!" Daniel shouted, diving forward, grabbing her just as the device burst with searing light. The blast tore through the clearing, throwing him back, fire ripping across his arms. He curled around Lyra, shielding her with his body, the heat burning through flesh and bone. The pain was endless, but he held, refusing to let go, refusing to let her take the fire meant for him. When the light faded, Daniel lay on the ground, his body smoking, his breath ragged. Lyra clung to him, her tears falling fast, crying, "Hero, don't leave me, please don't leave me." The warriors stared in shock, some with awe, others with anger. The scarred warrior stepped back, his face twisted in frustration. "This is what I warned you," he said coldly. "He brings danger. He brings ruin. Even now he nearly killed the child." Daniel forced himself to rise, his body trembling, blood dripping from his burned skin. His voice cracked, but his words cut through the clearing like a blade. "I would die before I let her be harmed. I would burn 1,000 times to keep her safe." Lyra's small hand held his tighter, her voice breaking with truth. "And he did. He saved me again." Serena's eyes flickered, doubt and belief fighting inside her. She had seen the sabotage. She had seen her warrior twist the device. But her pride, her fear of humans, held her tongue still. The scarred warrior pressed on, his voice sharp. "Kill him now, before he brings more fire, before he poisons us with lies." The warriors shifted again, their circle tightening, their spears glowing once more. Daniel stood in the center, broken, burned, but unyielding. He looked at Serena, his voice rough. "I don't care what you think of me, but I will not stop protecting her, not from your storms, not from your hunters, not even from your own people." Lyra pressed against his side, her voice rising like a song. "Mother, please believe me, he is the one." The forest held its breath, the circle frozen in silence. And in that silence, Serena's heart trembled, caught between the cries of her child and the hatred of her warrior. For the first time, she saw not just a human, not just an enemy, but a man willing to burn for a child who was not his own. Still, her voice came sharp, her decision heavy with weight. "This is not finished," she said, her tone cold. "Truth is not yet proven, and faith is not yet earned." She turned away, her cloak of silver light flowing like water. The prophecy speaks of more than fire. It speaks of sacrifice and truth. If he is truly the hero, it will be revealed. If not, he will die. The warriors lowered their spears reluctantly, though the scarred one's eyes burned with fury. Daniel staggered, holding Lyra close, her tears soaking his chest. His body was failing, his strength almost gone, but his spirit stood tall. He was no longer just a broken man, no longer just a survivor. He was the shield for the child who called him hero, even if the world around him wanted him dead. The night after the betrayal was heavy with silence. The forest glowed faintly, but even its strange lights seemed dimmer, as if the world itself held its breath. Daniel sat against the trunk of a great tree, his arms burned, his chest bruised, his breath uneven. Lyra stayed close, refusing to leave his side, her small hands resting over his wounds as if her touch alone could keep him alive. Serena stood nearby, her eyes cold and unreadable, yet they lingered on Daniel longer than before. The scarred warrior paced in the shadows, whispering to the others, his voice sharp with venom. Daniel knew he was waiting for another chance, waiting for Daniel to fail, waiting for Serenia to order his death. But something was changing, something Daniel could not yet name. As the twin moons rose high, Lyra spoke softly, her voice filled with sadness. "The prophecy," she whispered. "Mother does not want to believe, but the words are carved. The old stones do not lie." Daniel frowned, his voice rough. "Prophecy?" Lyra nodded, her silver eyes shining. "Yes, long ago, our people carved it into the temple. They said a human would come, not to conquer, not to destroy, but to protect the child of stars, and through him, the mother would see the truth." The words struck Daniel like a blade. He had heard tales of prophecy before. Soldiers whispered them during wars. Captains clung to them in hopeless battles. But he had never believed. He had seen too much death, too much failure. Yet now, here in the dark, with Lyra's small hand gripping his, he felt the weight of destiny pressing against his chest. Before he could answer, Serenia spoke, her voice sharp but quieter than before. "Do you know why humans are hated here?" she asked, her gaze piercing him. Daniel shook his head, his voice steady. "Because of betrayal." Serenia nodded slowly, her eyes hard. "Yes, they came as friends. They promised peace. They shared fire and words. But when our trust was given, they turned. They left us broken. My people still carry those scars." Her voice trembled, just for a heartbeat, before turning cold again. "And now my daughter dares to call you hero, dares to call you prophecy." Lyra stepped forward, her voice breaking with tears. "Because it is true. Mother, I saw it. I felt it. He is the one. And you will see too." The scarred warrior hissed, his anger sharp. "Lies, all lies. The stone should have burned him, but he twisted it. He deceives us." But even as he spoke, a low hum rose from the forest floor. The ground shook faintly, roots glowing with sudden light. The warriors froze, their spears lifting in fear. And then, from the earth itself, a hidden door began to rise, carved with old symbols, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. Lyra gasped, her voice full of awe. "The temple." Serenia's eyes widened, her control breaking for the first time. "It cannot be," she whispered. The door opened, revealing a staircase of stone leading deep into the earth. The air that flowed out carried the weight of age, of secrets long buried. Without waiting, Lyra grabbed Daniel's hand and pulled him forward. "Come, hero, you must see," she said, her voice trembling with joy and fear. Serenia moved quickly, her command sharp. "No, this place is forbidden." But even she could not stop the pull of the glowing path. The prophecy itself seemed to be opening before them. They descended, the walls lined with carvings of stars and humans and beings of silver light. Daniel's heart pounded, his breath shallow. Every step felt heavier, as though the air itself was testing him. Finally, they reached a vast chamber, its center holding a great stone tablet, carved with glowing runes. Lyra ran to it, her small hands brushing over the ancient words. "Here," she said, her voice echoing in the chamber. "This is what I told you, Mother. This is the truth." Serenia stepped forward, her eyes locked on the tablet, her breath sharp as she read. The words glowed brighter, as though alive. Daniel stood back, watching, uncertain, until Lyra's voice rang clear. "A human shall come, not to destroy, not to conquer, but to shield the child of stars. His sacrifice will be her salvation, and through him, the mother will believe." Her voice trembled, tears streaming down her face. "Do you see, Mother? Do you see?" Serenia's hand touched the tablet, her eyes filled with storm and silence. She turned to Daniel, her voice low, shaking. "These words, they're older than my people, older than war itself, and yet they speak of you." Daniel shook his head, his voice rough. "I'm no prophecy. I'm no savior. I'm just a man who refuses to let her die." But as he said the words, the tablet glowed brighter, filling the chamber with blinding light. The warriors shielded their eyes. The scarred one cursed and stumbled back. Lyra laughed through her tears, holding Daniel's burned hand. "See, hero, even the stone believes," she cried. And in that light, even Serena's doubt cracked, though pride still chained her heart. When the glow faded, silence filled the temple. Daniel stood weak but unbroken, Lyra pressed against his side. Serena stared at him, her lips trembling with words she did not yet speak. The scarred warrior snarled, his fury burning hotter, his whispers sharper. And Daniel knew. The prophecy had revealed itself, but the battle for belief was far from over. The chamber was silent after the light faded. Only the sound of Lyra's breathing and Daniel's heavy, ragged breaths filled the air. The stone tablet no longer glowed, but its words still echoed in their minds, heavy and undeniable. The warriors stood restless, shifting, their faces torn between fear and awe. The scarred warrior's eyes blazed with fury, his lips curled into a snarl. "This is a trick," he spat, his voice echoing in the temple. "The human has poisoned the stone. He has twisted the prophecy to his lies." He raised his spear, its red glow flaring with hate. "We must end him before he brings more ruin." The warriors stirred, torn, some lowering their weapons, others lifting them higher. Serena stood frozen, her hand still on the ancient tablet, her eyes locked on Daniel. Daniel stood tall, though his body screamed with pain. His arms burned, his chest tight, his legs weak, yet he would not fall. He pulled Lyra closer, shielding her with his body once more. His voice was rough, but steady. "If you want me dead, then take me, but know this. I will not step aside. I will not let her be harmed. Not by your storms, not by your hunters, not even by you." Lyra clung to him, tears shining, her voice small but fierce. "He is my hero, Mother, the one I told you about. Please, please believe me." Her words cut deeper than any weapon, sharp with truth. The queen's lips trembled, her eyes shifting between the scarred warrior's rage and her daughter's desperate plea. The scarred warrior lunged forward, his spear aiming for Daniel's chest. The world slowed, Lyra screamed. Daniel pushed her behind him, ready to take the blow. But the strike never landed. A sharp crack echoed, and the spear froze inches from Daniel's heart. Serena's hand held the shaft, her grip unshakable, her eyes blazing with command. "Enough," she said, her voice thunder and fire. The scarred warrior staggered back, his face twisted in shock. "My queen," he began, but Serena silenced him with a single glare. "The prophecy has spoken. The temple itself opened for him, the storm spared him, and twice he gave his flesh to shield my child." Her voice softened, breaking for the first time. "I cannot deny it any longer." She turned to Daniel, her silver eyes meeting his broken, weary gaze. "For years I hated your kind. I swore never again to trust a human, never again to risk my people's blood, but my daughter believed in you, and you proved her faith was not foolish." She stepped closer, her hand resting gently on Lyra's head, her voice trembling. "You are her hero, and now, I believe." Lyra gasped with joy, her tears falling as she pressed her face into her mother's chest. "See, Mother, I told you," she cried, her voice shaking with happiness. "I told you he was the one." Serena knelt before Daniel, her pride bending under the weight of truth. "You have my respect, human, and my gratitude. You save what I hold dearest." The warriors lowered their weapons, their heads bowing in silence. Even the scarred one, though his eyes still burned, could not stand against the queen's command. Daniel swayed on his feet, exhaustion crashing over him. But before he fell, Lyra's small arms caught his neck, whispering, "Rest, hero. You are safe now." The forest above trembled, the storm clouds fading, the golden leaves shining brighter than before. It was as if the world itself had accepted him, as if the prophecy had sealed his place among them. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment, his breath ragged, his heart heavy. He had never wanted to be a hero, never sought prophecy, never dreamed of destiny. But in Lyra's eyes, and now in Serena's, he had become one. Serena rose, her voice strong again, but changed, softer at its edges. My people will not accept this easily. The scars of the past run deep, but you have done what no human has ever done. You made me believe. She extended her hand to Daniel, a gesture of honor and trust. Daniel hesitated, then clasped it, his burned skin trembling against her strength. Lyra smiled, her voice bright with pride. See, hero, now she knows, now she believes. Daniel looked down at her, his lips curving into the faintest of smiles. I only did what I had to, he whispered, his voice rough. But if that makes me your hero, then so be it. The prophecy was no longer just words carved in stone. It was alive, breathing in the bond between a broken man and an alien child. And in the mother's heart that finally believed, the war between their peoples was not yet over. But something had changed, something new had begun. Hope, fragile but real, born in fire and sacrifice, carried by a child's faith and a mother's belief.